I've really been trying to make sense of this, because, well, what the hell's going on? Why am I selling out 3,000 person auditoriums? I use the stage, let's say, as a opportunity in real time to think. I've been thinking, well, if you're surfing, you don't confuse yourself with the wave. The wave.
That's how we get connected to Kira the Don, dude.
Yeah, I mean, you just do these things. When I wrote that VisiCalc thing, I just hit up the dude who made VisiCalc, right?
Oh,
nice. Like, what's up?
What did he say?
He's like, cool, yeah, you can use my pictures and my ads. It's like, cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, people are chill. You just reach out, man. Just extend the hand. Welcome to the Unwise Index. Still standing. Still a podcast.
Still living. They thought we wouldn't come back, dude.
We were underground for quite a while.
Still free.
Still free. Land of the free.
Land of the free, home of the brave.
Yes. My name is Akshay, joined as always by Monik. What's up, Monik?
You know what it is, dude.
Actually, I don't, dude. It's been about 18 months.
It's been 18 months, and the reason why we stopped casting was we were worried, dude. We were worried about the world. We had to go take a hiatus and get some shit right.
Get centered. Yeah, start to think about some things.
And after observing for 18 months, it's like the world's still standing.
Yeah.
But now you got you got the intellectual dark web. You got all these folks trying to control the logos of human society. And we realized the index is needed right now.
It is. It feels like, so when I think about what's happened since March 2017, which was the last episode, I was just saying I have a hard time thinking about a lot of specifics. It feels like one big blur, right? Like a lot of years, if you think back 12 months, feel that way. But it's I think there's a lot of political stuff, a lot of, kind of contentious geopolitical stuff.
A lot of tweets, a lot of new hashtags.
Yeah, I think that North Korea, we have peace with North Korea now, if I read that correctly.
Who knows, dude?
Yeah, I don't think it's clear. We'll see, right?
Yeah.
Dennis Rodman's in the mix still there. Yeah, and it feels like, there's a lot of new music, right? A lot of new music on all sides.
That's true. Yeah, Ye came out with 2 albums. That was
He
cool.
released 5 albums, right?
That's true, since the time, yeah.
Yeah, so it was him. It was him with Kid Cudi, and then it was the Nas album, and then it was the Tiana Taylor album. He had 7 albums that came out or something.
And he had the anthem of the year, dude. With all this trials and tribulation around the world, you got to feel the love, dude.
Feel the love. Or the poopity scoop.
Well, that too, poopity scoop.
Yeah.
That was a great.
The
memes, dude. The memes keep coming.
I almost forgot about the break the internet moment when he wore the MAGA hat. That's how much stuff is happening day to day, that I forgot that even happened. Until I just now started doing the recall here on the cast.
And that's important, right? He was trying to make a statement that not all thought needs to be monolithic. He can have his own diverse thought, but some thoughts worse than others. And that's why we're here. We're going to course correct some thought.
There is a hierarchy, you could say, of thoughts.
Oh no, dude. Well, we'll have to have a dedicated Jordan Peterson podcast.
Well, there's both the philosophy and psychoanalysis of the man, and there's also the music that the man is a part of. You go to Spotify, you go to Apple Music right now, type in Akira the Don and Jordan Peterson, you will see some hot beats.
Dude, that
I'm
new
100%
genre of
serious.
music is masterful. I will say my posture has improved.
You got to stand up straight with your shoulders back.
Stand up straight with your shoulders back, dude. It's amazing.
It is. And this is there's also so there's this guy Akira the Don who we'll link in the show notes, who basically he's invented a new genre of music called meaningwave. And hopefully we'll get the rights either in this episode or coming up to be able to use some samples. But he basically blends both modern thinkers and historical thinkers and other interesting philosophy with beats that he makes. And so it's people like Jordan Peterson, it's people like Terence McKenna, it's people like Alan Watts.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty wide spectrum of folks that don't necessarily I find them all interesting, but they don't really overlap that much necessarily.
Yeah, and what's cool about it is you actually listen to the lyrics, and the lyrics have meaning. So I can imagine vibing out to some Archaic Revival and some Terence McKenna and Alan Watts the club. That's remarkable. That's amazing. It's such a brilliant idea.
Everybody's always in the club just trying to, get their drink on, have some fun. But what if you were also getting a little meaning while you were there?
That's what the world needs right now, man.
It's you're both, getting fresh in the club, but you're also learning something about yourself.
And that's what I think when I think about the Unwise Index. I think we've both been on a path to find meaning. I think we're getting
I'd say
closer.
so.
I think we're getting closer. Meaning in our own
We're almost
lives.
there.
We're almost there. We've gotten a lot of trips to find it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that at some point. But
yeah, we've gone underground, above ground, everywhere.
I think the reason we came back, outside of it being fun for us and getting a lot of feedback that we got some laughs, we came back because man's search for meaning, dude.
Man's search for meaning in this complicated world, in this connected world.
We have useful things to say, I think.
I think so. And I think, well, the topic for today is lots of memes, lots of tweets, again, thinking about the last 16 to 18 months. You know, there is an ordering, there is a hierarchy of thinking or of a goodness or a badness to certain thoughts, you could say. But censorship and the limits of free speech and what should be allowed to be part of the public discourse, even if it is misinformation, right? And so, well, we can go into this maybe here in a second, but it's the Alex Jones InfoWars stuff of the moment, but I think it is a broader conversation.
You know, first things first, man.
Yeah, first
as
things
is
first.
Tradition. What you drinking right now? What you eating, dude?
What am I eating? Well, I'm eating knowledge every day.
Oh, sad, dude.
I know.
Eat them pages, dude.
Just eating the books, eating the books. It's harder when they're Kindle books, but you know, you still find a way to do it. I'm just drinking some sugar-free Red Bull, but it's on ice. You can hear the ice.
Oh, nice. I can hear that. Yeah.
So yeah, nothing super fancy.
What prompted the sugar-free decision?
So I think I generally, and maybe you feel this way too, it's like anything that's a full sugar carbonated drink feels like you might as well be like smoking a cigarette or like doing something. Like, it feels like it's that level of social stigma now.
Right.
And like, you know, I don't think we know what the effects are of sugar-free drinks. I mean, isn't it like aspartame in like large amounts kills rats or something?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not drinking that much of it, I don't think, but like that's really it. It's like, I think like, okay, it's probably the healthier choice. I'm just trying to get my caffeine on, so why not, right?
It feels that, getting your health game on, dude. We got to live long lives.
Yeah, you know, it's like when I'm trying to be healthy, some people have these like, you know, these quinoa protein shakes or something. I don't know what they drink. And I got Red Bull, so we'll see who wins. We'll tally it up at the end of the day.
I heard it gives you wings, though, right?
It does. It makes it hard to sit in this chair.
Oh man,
what are you drinking?
Dude, I'm fancy today.
Fancy.
You know, I was going out to buy some drink before the show because I'm like, this is a big moment. We gotta inaugurate this shit.
Yes.
And so I took out a wine glass, and I'm drinking some Naked Grape Malbec. So I'm living the high class life compared to our previous cast.
It's Naked Grape?
Naked Grape, yeah, not Naked Juice. Throwback, episode 4, but Naked Grape Malbec.
Got it. Yeah, I was gonna say, Naked Juice is making wine now. Wow, they really stratified up that product
We need to
mix.
get that sponsor, dude. Naked
Juice.
sponsor us.
We're giving you free ideas here. I mean, the least you can do is throw a little money at the cast. A little bit.
Exactly. We got views, dude. We got subscribers.
Yeah, I mean, I think SoundCloud is like artificially deflating our numbers, so it's like, you know, it's probably too much for the system to even handle.
I was sad about our marketing intern. Leaving us, right? Kind of disappointing. You know, we planned this whole guerrilla marketing campaign, and
We did.
yeah, it's sad. It's real sad to see that person go. You know, they were pursuing their own dreams and destiny, and we can't stop vision.
Just another kid who wanted to be a YouTuber, you know?
He's got a million views now.
He does. But we're not jealous or anything, but
Yeah,
a little bit, just a little bit jealous.
Oh man.
So yeah, any food to complement it? I mean, I'd probably be hearing the food if you were eating food.
No food. I ate earlier. I'm trying to adopt this paleo diet. I'm trying to mix it up. So the years have not been kind to me. Like 4 years ago, I was like 170 pounds. You know, I was in shape, good looking stunner. And now,
young stunner,
dude. And now I'm pushing 210, dude. I'm gaining a lot of weight, and I don't know what's happening. And now I felt the pain of old age because like I'm not eating very much more. I'm actually exercising. My sleeping habits are fine. I got a Fitbit. I'm tracking my sleep. I got like 6.5 hours of sleep. Actually, my average is 5 hours and 47 minutes. But I feel refreshed every day.
Okay, that's good.
But for some reason, I'm still putting on pounds like no other. And I don't get it. And like one argument I have is I have this Unwise scale. I should have gotten the Fitbit scale. I got this Unwise scale. And the Unwise scale is like way off because it says my body fat percentage is like 12%. And I'm like, there's no goddamn way, dude. I'm looking at my pudge. Dude, there's no way it's 12%. Like, Unwise, you wrong. So I need to find another scale to really see what my actual weight is. Because my perception of myself doesn't seem that fat, right? I don't look at myself and say, "Oh, I'm big." But then I look at a picture of myself. I'm like, "Oh man, homie, you let it go, dude. You let it go."
Also, we're getting older. Things are metabolism and shit. It's a whole science, right? Things change. So you're trying the paleo though. That's what you're trying.
I'm gonna try it. Yeah. So today I just had a bunch of protein, no bread, no grains, and then I'm actually gonna try intermittent fastation as well. Intermittent starving.
That's a level of discipline right there. Let me clarify though. Is how do you distinguish paleo from? Is it like does it induce ketosis? Is this keto?
I mean, I haven't done all the science research behind this thing.
Lower carb.
I'm all about the hype and trends, dude. So the hype and trend right now is paleo. Yeah. So I'm jumping on.
Are you like out there foraging for nuts?
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
No. I ended up going to, there's this like local coffee shop that has nitro cold brew and then protein boxes.
Yeah. Everything the body needs, as Morpheus would say.
Yeah. It's just hard-boiled eggs, nuts, cheese, and grapes, and a little bit of nitro cold brew, and I'm good to go.
Okay. I guess, the grapes and fruit, I guess, wouldn't probably be part of a keto diet. But it is still like paleo, right? Because paleo is basically whatever else, like whatever our cavemen ancestors could have found, right?
Yeah. I believe that's.
It's like this is a free range Lunchable, like my ancestors would have found on the.
I probably should know more about the diet food is a huge component of one's life, and I'm going to be adopting this diet. Don't know enough about it.
And I applaud you about it. I applaud you specifically because I know food is a big part of what you enjoy in life as well.
It is, dude. Well,
and so this is like constraining yourself. That's real.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. I still haven't figured out why, though. When I look in the mirror, I see myself as thin, but the facts don't add up, dude. It's this, going back to Alex Jones, it's all about perception and facts. I'm looking at the mirror, I see myself thin, and I look at the facts, and it doesn't add up.
As the Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson debates will hopefully elucidate, there are different forms of truth, Monic. There are different forms of truth.
There really are. There really are. The fake news even exist in my own life.
In your own mirror. How could it betray you like that?
Dude, man in the mirror.
Man in the mirror, yeah. We need to look up the Digital Millennium copyright, whatever, because you can use 30-second clips from stuff, right? Or am I just making that up?
Yeah.
Like without issue? Because I thought you could. But maybe that's wrong. Anyway, if we get big enough where that becomes a problem, I think that'll be all right.
That's when we know we made it. First lawsuit, right. I wouldn't even be mad. I'm like, all right, we made it.
All right, hey intern, and get some paperwork going.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, Alex Jones. So I think it's worth prefacing before we dive into today's topic, which is the censorship, the mass banning, the omni banning of Alex Jones. That I think we both do find Alex Jones to be quite comedic in some ways. Understand how problematic he is as well, but I think maybe have a slightly more endearing, lens into what he does, probably because of the Joe Rogan podcast and other things, right?
Yeah.
So there's a bit of nuance there.
Yeah, I mean, my extent of Alex Jones is, I watch the compilation meme clips. I watched a full cast maybe a handful of times, and I watched a lot of his podcasts. I mean, where I come out on him is, obviously, pound for pound, 90% of the time what he says is absolute rubbish. Diametrically opposed to a lot of his views. Think he needs like a heavy application of Occam's razor to a lot of his theories around the world, right? He kind of creates these large conspiracy theories where the simplest answer is probably right and usually is right. And I think he does do a lot of harm and riles a lot of people up. And I think it's fair to say that his voice had some role to play in the election of Trump, which is obviously fundamentally opposed to a lot of the views I have about
reality.
About reality, right? Like, so I mean, summation is disagree with his thought, but the memes are too good, right? Like I without doubt, if I want to laugh, I can Google Alex Jones meme, and there are a handful of YouTube creators who have created a compilation meme of these photos of him, and it's just goddamn hilarious.
Yeah, I think I So let me say up front that I realize that he has said some particularly heinous stuff around specifically like instigating the Pizzagate stuff, where like there was this, sort of fake rumor around the presence of a pedophile ring in like the basement of a Hillary Clinton supporter in DC that caused a man to walk in there with a gun. I think the most heinous thing he's done is around like basically like promulgating this like rumor that like the Sandy Hook massacre was basically a conspiracy with actors.
Right.
Like some pretty dark shit. But I think it all comes from this place of him, and I think this is where the comedic source is as well, of him being just this ridiculously paranoid conspiracy theory person. Like he is the conspiracy theorist of the internet, meme, 4chan, troll age, right? And I think the lens into him sort of in more than one dimension that a lot of people saw was on, again, Joe Rogan's podcast, where he had like kind of this 3-hour conversation with him and Eddie Bravo, who I don't know why he was there. And like, you just saw this guy who like legitimately felt like he was sort of gripped by this like revolution that was underway between the elites and like the true frontiersmen and patriots of this country. He at one point goes into his theory of what the elites want, and it involves trans-dimensional vampire pedophiles.
Yeah.
And like,
and let's pause there. Like that's exactly what he said. That's not an extrapolation of his words.
And like in the way in which he talks about like the elites wanting to escape like the 3 and 4 dimensions that we're in to go to like ascended dimensions. Like someone actually, so there's a show called Evangelion, which is like it's like the 2001 A Space Odyssey equivalent of anime. It's like very out there, very like kind of esoteric concepts, abstract, a little bit like all over the place. And like someone's like, they just took his explanation of what the elites are doing in the real world and labeled the video Alex Jones Explains the Evangelion Conspiracy. Yeah. And it made total 100% sense. Like it fit as if he was talking about a fictional show.
Yeah. And I mean, and the other thing about him, like in that interview, what's unique about that interview, if folks haven't watched it, I would recommend they do, because if they're only seeing Alex Jones as a show, there's a blend of his kind of internal character, his created persona, and also his business. I mean, the Alex Jones InfoWars show.
Are you buying the Alex Jones stuff? Is this how you're doing this paleo shit?
Dude, what is it called? Like, the supplements he sells are all rubbish.
You're like, all right, I'm gonna get these supplements and I'll be all set.
I know, right? And like the issue with him is like when he's on his show, he's a provocateur, he's an entertainer, and he also has his own internal guiding beliefs. Plus, he has a business to run, and you get that mix that all in a soup, and you got a pretty nasty soup. Right,
that's a soup right there.
It's a gumbo soup. But when you in the Joe Rogan podcast, it kind of peeled behind the covers, and you had friend and friend interacting with one another. Right, and you get a better sense of what's motivating this guy, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and I think that there's also, to be fair to my own like sympathy, like my own sense of sympathy here. It's like it was surprising to see the friend to friend interaction in that setting. And I think I think it probably proportionally humanized him more than any other one podcast would have for most people, just because he was such a meme before that. Right. And so he's been keeping on, and actually has not been happy with President Trump all that much, because he was crying on one of his podcasts, or one of his broadcasts rather, when it was announced they would go into Syria. Right. He had this very, again, he lives in his sort of own headspace. And I think like when the fan fiction of his head started to break with reality, he started to actually, it sounded like, splinter with some of the conservative types that had followed him, and some of the people who had been kind of part of the Trump supporter camp and the InfoWars camp. Yeah. And so he's been like, I think one thing that I think is lost is like, it's not like he's just like a vanilla Trump supporting guy. It's like it's like conspiracy and paranoia, and like for a period of time he saw Trump as sort of like the savior of mankind. But that again also wore thin, because once it was reified, right? Once he became president, it's like it immediately became like the magic was gone. Yeah. Right? As kind of like what it seemed like.
Yeah. And what's interesting about him also is that he attracts a pretty diverse set of viewpoints. I mean, I think he has the 4chan crew, he has the alt-right crew, he has the Trump supporters. Then he has a variety of conspiracy theorists of different flavors and blends and seriousness. And I think, when we get to the topic at hand around his deplatforming and censorship, the one big variable here is that his scope of influence is pretty damn large. From what I understanding, multiple million subscribers on YouTube are getting 12, 13, 14 million views, predominantly from the US, on every major cast, plus what he gets from his radio show and any other interviews and podcasts he does. So from a media standpoint and influence on thought and the zeitgeist at the times, this dude actually has outsized influence than most other folks.
Yeah, it's true. And I think, so the heart of what happened here, I guess, to kind of segue into like the current events, was it Sunday? It might've been Sunday. By the time we're recording this, it was like basically, within a few weeks of this recording at, whenever it goes up, Apple decided to delist him from the iTunes podcast directory, basically.
Right.
So his app, which actually allows you to watch his live streams and see his broadcast, was still up, but his podcasts were delisted. And apparently, like, everybody kind of followed in line from seeing that. So Facebook decided to delist him, or like ban him, basically permanently ban him from the platform shortly after that. And YouTube and Google did the same thing after that as well, in the successive days. And I think that was that caused this wave where it's like, there's of course the reaction where it's like, yeah, the guy had what's coming to him. He was, you could argue he did incite hateful speech and incite violence via speech, and things that might qualify under certain hate, sort of common definitions of hate speech. But it did really open up a conversation, because it's like, well, these are all private platforms.
Right.
And there's the sense that he was doing what he was doing for quite a while. Yeah. And so was it just sort of cowardice that kept people from doing anything until, Apple sort of flipped a switch, or it all felt bizarre and strangely, even if it was just kind of follow the leader, it felt coordinated in a way that feels malicious. And, for a guy who's a conspiracy theorist, definitely not going to do anything to keep him from maybe riling up his greatest conspiracy theory yet, you know?
No, and not only that, I mean, was there a specific match that was lit in the recent few weeks that caused this, or was this just completely arbitrary in terms of when Apple made that choice?
I think this is where I'm unclear, right? Because I've heard, you can point to a recent broadcast, any broadcast that's recent, and say, hey, look, there's something hateful there that violates terms of service.
Right.
But that was true, I think, for pretty much the entire back catalog of what he had been posting. So I don't think, at least to my knowledge, there was anything that was sort of the match that was lit that was different than what he was doing prior, right? Yeah. Or at least markedly different. It was more, I think, it was just the decision to act on it, probably finally, which is what's interesting, right? Because you sort of, even if he was transgressing, right, and he was breaking rules, it was you sort of had projected that it was okay, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I mean, if we're looking at grading him on hate speech, inciting violence, spreading fake news, screaming obscenities, he's checked that box for years. I don't think there's anything substantially new in what he's doing. And going back to your point, it's I almost wish, from my stance, and these are for-profit companies, they can do what they want, and I think we can't question the decision. I think that's perfectly fine. But we can talk about the greater responsibility for these platforms in corralling and thinking about censorship and free speech as human society. This is the first time you can broadcast your views globally. That's a separate topic. But the main concern I have is I almost wish they did conspire. I wish these platforms conspired and spread this shit out, right? Because on the surface, it looks kind of in a few days time frame. If there was no specific point instance you can point to that caused them to make this action. If I care, and me, deeply progressive, I care about the progressive agenda, this just adds fuel to the fire of any conspiracy theory around the left deplatforming any alternative views in a really real and clear way. So I'm deeply concerned about, I don't know what the fallout has been from Alex Jones followers and other folks that run in his circles, but to do it in such a short time frame, I almost wish behind the scenes that they actually did conspire and week by week, guys, just spread this shit out, make it seem a little bit more reasonable and less conspicuous and less of a conspiracy.
Yeah, I can definitely sympathize with what you're saying, but I actually don't. So I'm reticent to, if he was actually trying to target specific people, And he was actually, there's evidence that he was, the hateful speech was, sort of like actionable and directed enough that it was a danger to have him on the platform. Like it wasn't just misinformation, the typical Alex Jones stuff. Like that's one thing, but I tend to, I think, be very skeptical of banning somebody from a platform. I know it's, again, you can sort of say it's a private platform that can do what they want, but there is sort of like an easement that occurs when you kind of allow somebody to exist and build a business and build a following on your platform over the span of years, and you don't enforce, maybe them crossing over one of the lines you've drawn, then you suddenly decide to kind of like drop the ban hammer on them. Yeah. So I think that kind of feels weird to me. And I think generally it does feel like it comes from a place of fear, right?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, I want to qualify and say that, I still lean towards. So I think objectively the decision, we can't really assault the decision because they are their own private enterprises running these platforms.
Right. And everybody's saying freedom of speech. It's not a government trying to silence anybody here. It's private platforms.
Right. It's a private entity. And I think we can have an interesting discussion on, our view of, again, the responsibilities of these private entities when in the first time in human history, someone can produce thought, display it for all to see. And what responsibility does that increase on the platform, on the companies that run those platforms?
Right.
But when I'm doing the calculus, what I don't know yet is with the banning of Alex Jones. So if you let Alex Jones stay on the platform, there are a couple of things that I'm curious to hear your thoughts on. So one, with his banning, people who want to listen to Alex Jones are going to find ways to listen to Alex Jones, regardless of the platform he's on, right?
I'm using Tor, man. I'm getting it via Tor.
Yeah. So I mean, like they're going to find ways to find his thought and agree with his thought. And the negative of that, what I really deeply fear is when you don't have thought out in the limelight, there's the calcification of that thought increases, right? Those ideas become more virulent and stronger. And when it's not for all to see, it's much less likely to be attacked. And, the end result of his thought, in my mind, if people find him in this subversive view versus, the limelight of an Apple, Facebook, Google, YouTube, whatever it may be, then I think you have thought that leads to stronger thought, which leads to behavior, which leads to actions, which, are completely against, my political viewpoint and where I think humans should go. So that's concerning to me. But the counterpoint to that is if you, what's worse is actually allowing that thought to grow via giving him large platforms like YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a hard calculus to play. Like, what is the appropriate action here of, putting it under the ground, and when it's underground, things grow and become stronger, or letting it for all to see where the actual thought can be spread more wildly like a cancer.
Yeah. No, I think those are both like nuanced points of view for sure. And I think my own bias definitely comes down on like, I think you can't try to tuck these things away. And I think you can't, like, again, think about just in this specific example, like there's a general point, but in this specific case, the people who follow him are probably also somewhat attracted to the conspiratorial and kind of the paranoid and those sorts of thought patterns that emanate from Alex Jones, right? And this sort of coordinated deplatforming, right? Like sort of, it almost like makes it more combustible that it's not given like kind of the equivalent platform as everybody else, because it reinforces the notion that there is, some sort of grand conspiracy in this case. So I don't think you're doing anything in this particular instance to actually, you might be depriving the guy of business. You might be like affecting, like, again, like sort of like the ability for him to sustain. But I don't think it intellectually deplatforms him in any way, right? It just sort of reinforces like sort of the conspiratorial notions. And I guess I do think that it, somebody who disagrees with a lot of what Alex Jones says, I think he should still be allowed to say it. And I think, again, unless there's very specific violations which are of real concern to people, and it just doesn't seem like it holds water. Like maybe Apple is known for being a pretty conservative culture when it comes to how it regulates its stores and its marketplaces. And so I can see maybe it crossed line with iTunes, but the fact that the dominoes then fell for Facebook and for Google, it's like, I don't really believe that you guys were keeping an eye on specific content and deciding to act. Yeah. It just seems like you wanted to, avoid the sort of the follow-up media story that would have occurred, which is, well, why didn't you guys take action as well?
Right.
And I think the one notable exception here to point out is that Twitter chose not to ban him. So,
Right.
or so Jack Dorsey and folks at Twitter, and they were lambasted for this, said, hey, what he says, he says a lot of reprehensible things, perhaps. You can disagree with it, not endorsing it for sure, but he didn't violate our terms of service. And so I actually,
Is that true though? Like he didn't violate the terms. So I guess his tweeting content might be substantially different, substantially less combustible than the content that he spews on his podcast.
My sense is in the specifics, that's true. It's probably the case that on Twitter, there isn't stuff that's it isn't the 3 hours of video, and they probably aren't getting the same sort of granularity of content that the other services are getting. And so they can probably say or tap dance around hey, he didn't actually ever violate any terms of service here. He's just posting links and posting updates. But I also think that if you think about Twitter's position sort of in the Trump era, they have been pretty ardent in saying we're not going to try. People have said, Trump is inciting violence. Trump is doing this and that. You should ban him, or you should ban others around him. And I think they've been very hesitant to do any of that. And I think if I had to sort of project a motivation onto them, I think there is this sense that they think it is dangerous to do that.
Yeah.
And to sort of try to, kind of apply a partisan filter across what is supposed to be a global public square. Right.
Yeah, I think it's the argument of precedence, right? It's if we set this precedence and we can't control the future folks who maybe control Twitter, Dorsey's might be internally sound and morally correct in his own view.
Right.
If he sets the precedence of squelching speech or deplatforming, then the next person who might not share his views can use that same right as well, which is tough to grapple with on a longer time scale.
Yeah, and Twitter has this sort of, even relative to YouTube, which is so extremely pervasive today, and even relative to Facebook, which is kind of the community water cooler environment for most people. Twitter is sort of a unique beast, right? Policy gets announced on Twitter now.
Right.
It's sort of this massive global IRC, right? This sort of messaging service. And I think the implications of banning somebody from Twitter are also a little bit different, right? It seems a bit more neutral, and it seems a bit more extreme to say you can't have a voice on this platform that's, I think, as, not nearly as monetarily sort of sound as the other platforms, but I think more critical in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And I feel there's always going to be, when these folks take an act on Alex Jones and are pointing to the rules that they have on their platforms, there are countless others who are breaking those rules as well. And you can't police everyone, which then institutes, cognitive dissonance and a double standard in someone's mind. But the thing I still struggle with is, right now we're talking about purely the ideas he spews and his right to spew those ideas, however disingenuous, incorrect they might be. But then they have real world impact. Like you talked about the Pizzagate controversy, but then we look at his views on Sandy Hook, right? Where the parents of Sandy Hook are harassed.
Yeah, it's ugly.
This day, right?
Horrific stuff.
And in that scenario, I'm looking at, what are the limits here? Where can we as a society course correct and choose that this is not, free speech is great. We already have forms of unprotected speech. If there's very clear cause for human suffering, then do we think it's a little bit more appropriate to squelch speech? And I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here because I still generally have the inclination that you have, which is, and another thing we didn't think about, which is actually probably the biggest variable in my mind, is if you have thought out there, something like a YouTube, the beauty of YouTube is you can get exposed to a lot of different ideas.
Right.
You can click on an Alex Jones video and be a fervent Alex Jones supporter. And on the far right, you can click on a counterpoint that pops up of someone refuting his exact point.
Yeah.
And if you put his views in the underground, you will never have that opposing view even have a chance of popping up in your perspective. And that, I think, is very dangerous. How do we think people's ideas change? It's in my mind, that's probably the biggest argument for me personally around why I disagree is the more open ideas, the more chances someone who has a very calcified thought, the more chance that thought has the ability to change over time, which is kind of what we're aiming for, right?
I agree. And I think it's harder to do on Twitter with real impact, but I also think there's sort of a granularity and a proportion. like sort of argument as well, where it's like if he says something terrible in a video or in 2 videos out of like 1,000 or out of 1,500, like maybe they all have ridiculous content, but like the Pizzagate stuff, the Sandy Hook stuff, which is, I think clearly you could argue like you could, I think, make an argument. I don't know the specifics that actually violates terms of service, right? Like you could remove those videos specifically. Like YouTube does something where it demonetizes videos if it feels the content isn't acceptable. You could even go beyond that and say we're going to ban any videos. We're going to do like sort of use algorithms for what they're good at, right? It's like we're going to trace through the sort of transcribed sort of speech transcript from your videos, and we're going to say like if we find the word Sandy Hook in there, it's not getting posted. Like you could I mean, and that gets into a different sort of like sort of partial censorship game, but there are ways. There's like the fact that it has to be absolute, right? It's like your entire thing is banned. I think makes it particularly unsettling.
No, definitely agree. And I think the most important question in my mind is, will this action hurt or help the left's agenda or the progressive agenda, which is the
I think it will hurt it.
About.
I think it's going to hurt it.
I agree. I think it hurts it long term. I think when you add it up of some form of the martyr effect with Alex Jones to reinforcing conspiracy theories around the left squelching speech, however true or not true that is. 3, a lot of these conspiracy theorists banding together in a unseen area where no one can question them or attack them, and no one's could be miffed to do so because it's not widely accessible unless people already agree with those views.
Think about the Charlottesville marches, right? When sort of the white nationalist march there, it's like they all gather on forums and in places that nobody else looks, right? It's like Stormfront, that like neo-Nazi website. It's other places, point. Right?
Yep.
It's like same thing will happen with everybody you think is unacceptable for mainstream platforms. And there are a lot more, as that showed, there are more of them than you think.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I think that's a perfect point because it's like that's what's going to happen with his following. Yeah.
But if you are listening, Alex Jones subscribers, like and subscribe, please.
We'll take anything we can get, man.
Hey, if you're opening yourself up to eclectic thought, to different points of view, I applaud you for that. And I think one of the things that I think is like, to on a more serious note, is like very important is, like you said, the ability to basically go between viewpoints and actually not just see the soundbite, but actually see the argument, right? Yeah. And it's hard to watch Alex Jones in longer clips than 2 to 4 minutes, but it was interesting. And again, I got more context on what he actually believes by doing that. And I think like it's easy to just hate somebody or to vilify them. And that might be the correct thing to do, sort of from your moral stance or from where you sit. But if you haven't bothered to figure out what they're actually about, and you've just seen a meme or just seen a tweet, and you're deciding to take up the banner against somebody, like I think that's the form of the liberal kind of like scapegoating that we think is going to be ultimately very destructive.
Yeah. And it goes both ways.
It definitely goes both ways. Yeah. But I think, like you said, one side has classically stood for, sort of open and free speech as much as the other. And to see it getting infringed on, or see sort of the outrage machine wheeled out on, so often, I think is what's concerning.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I think that's like part of the reason why it's been so difficult to think about what's happened the last 18 months. It's like the amount of outrage, in a given week that happens is exhausting. I try not to actually look at my Twitter timeline all that much as a result. I try to, and I've tried to just like limit the amount of people who are like bound to be political or sort of tweet the incensory or retweet the incensory political stuff to very few, because you open that and suddenly like, it's, you don't even know what happened. You see the reaction to the reaction to the reaction of something.
Dude, people need to chill, dude. I mean, I have actually a goofy personal story about people need to chill. I was on a flight earlier this week. Just like 3 days ago to Minneapolis, right? Flying out of LGA. Flight's not delayed, right? So I can get when people are irritable when flights are delayed. Flight's not delayed, on time, actually boarding early. Yeah. I get on the plane and I'm putting my baggage in the overhead compartment, and it's a full flight. So they're asking people to check bags, but I didn't check my bag and there was still space. So I'm putting my bag up, and the lady who's sitting next to me gets up and, helps move her stuff to the left side of this compartment, and I'm able to put my bag in and not touching the right side of the compartment at all. And this guy right below me, raises his voice and says, "Why are you fiddling with my laptop up there?" Initially it said, my initial reaction is, "Sorry, sir, I'm not touching your laptop." And actually the lady behind, who's, moving her stuff on the left side says, "Yeah, he's not touching your laptop. Sorry about that." He gets up and looks me in the face and continues to raise his voice and says, "Why are you messing with my laptop?" And at this point I was just like flabbergasted that I actually smiled and started giggling, because it was just such an absurd scene of, this person has, just completely wrong priorities in life. Like, why is this the hill you want to die upon, right? When I'm not even touching your bag, touching your laptop. And then suddenly, I showed him exactly where my bag is and where his laptop was. And, clearly by the laws of physics, there's no way that my bag is touching his laptop. And he finally apologizes. But it was very startling to me to be accosted in that way. It made me realize that, what I deem as what really needs to, what's deserving of outrage is just so radically different than other people in day-to-day life. I would never in a million years raise my voice at someone, even if they were moving my bag in an airplane, right? Yeah. It's just a radically different way of experiencing the world. So you scale that up to a lot of people, well, this is what you get.
Well, I got a few tidbits of wisdom after hearing that story that popped to mind.
Yeah.
One, for our listeners out there, this is wisdom that I heard from Charlemagne the God on a podcast, which is you never want to raise your voice for also one specific reason, which is you can never control how someone else is going to react. So you happen to smile and be calm about it. Someone else might be having a very different day, and they get sort of harangued like that, and something very different happens to that guy. And so you don't want to put that negative energy out there. Second thing is I hope that you called the DEA, because it sounds like that guy was definitely smuggling drugs. It's like, why was he so concerned about you touching this bag? It was not a laptop, dude.
No, dude.
There's something else going on. Unless he had his crypto keys on that drive, dude.
It's right. It's like, oh shit, dude.
Something else was going on there.
That's what I'm saying, man. It goes back to Kanye, dude. You got to feel the love.
Yeah, it's true. I do worry about Kanye, though. I do. Because I think, I just don't think his natural state is that sort of love bliss. I think he's a more volatile personality than that.
He's trying to. I mean, did you see his recent interview on Jimmy Kimmel?
I did. And I think he's, again, and even then I could see a little bit of a difference, I thought, from the prior interviews. I think he's just more of a volatile, I think it's a positive spectrum of emotions, but I don't think it's just this sort of like serene, like yoga bliss kind of thing.
Sure.
And maybe he felt it for a while, and I think it's a good feeling to try to hold on to, but it's, for somebody who has, I think, his creative dispositions, I think it's difficult. But hey, if he's, I applaud the guy for talking so openly about his struggles with mental health.
Yeah.
And I think he has, again, from just reading and listening to folks, like, done a bit to move the conversation for parts of his audience that have not felt comfortable talking about that stuff openly. So that's pretty cool.
No, definitely. And I mean, I think what I will say about Kanye is that the album with Kid Cudi was very much a return to form. So, I mean, even, breaking through all the political shenanigans, all the Twitter shenanigans, Kanye at the end of the day still has to be respected for the creative genius he is. I don't think people give enough credit for that. I mean, that's a phenomenally produced album.
Yeah. And I think, he produced, again, 7 albums, 7 songs each, within the span of a few months. It's like that he just had this sort of pent-up creativity when he was in the hospital, is how the story goes, and
right.
Was able to just unleash that, which is really cool. I think it shows that he's got some fire still in him, which is really cool.
What's your favorite Alex Jones meme?
That's a hard question, man. There's a compendium of memes out there. I do think the Evangelion one is my favorite.
That is pretty good. Yeah.
You have to watch the show to realize it's not like you have to know it that well, but it's like, it is just that title alone saying he's explaining the plot of this show, and then he goes on that rant. It's like, it's within 2% of that show, like 98% match plot of Evangelion. And he believes this is true.
Yeah. And when he's talking about it, he deeply believes it's true. He's passionately talking about this, so much so that it's like you can't look away, right? You have to listen to him, and parts of it are resonant.
Imagine being in the same room, we're just watching it over in 2 dimensions. Imagine being in that room, seeing the sweat, seeing the fervor, seeing like the religious prophecy.
Yeah, he's just manic about it. And the cool thing about, the interesting about that whole, his just theory of the world is, the core of it is very life affirming.
Yeah,
right?
That's the thing. It's like this sort of druidic, almost like Gaia, Mother Nature, like we are beautiful creatures, not beasts to be enslaved by people who have no regard for life. It's like this like very galactic, like Shakespearean thing.
And I think that's why people resonate a lot with it, is because, that's ideally how everyone wants to feel, is, beyond alive, fully human.
Yeah.
And the narrative he has built around that is pretty powerful.
The Metaphysical Frontier.
Yeah, dude.
Is that our show title? Maybe it's our show title.
Metaphysical Frontier, dude. Oh shit, dude. Oh my god.
gotta
I'm drinking so much
more.
Malbec, dude. I finished this whole bottle, dude.
Is this keto or whatever the fuck you're doing?
Oh shit, dude. I don't know if wine is part of the paleo diet, dude. Oh no.
Well, if you don't look it up, you're not breaking any rules.
That's true, dude. I haven't been exposed to that thought, dude.
It's like until the thought exists.
They deplatformed the diets. I can only all I have is whatever I found on WikiHow.
Speaking of memes, is WikiHow just one big meme site?
I think so, dude. At this point, yeah.
Because like the amount of goofy things they get people to draw, it's like how to like use a broom to seduce a raccoon. It's like, and then somebody like draws these things. I'm like, what is happening here? And impressively, it's like the same art style. It's like the same artist.
Someone is making bank off Fiverr or Craigslist, like drawing for WikiHow, dude. It's like that is their career.
It's like the new Yahoo Answers, right? Is that the way to think about it?
I haven't been on Yahoo in years, man. When is Yahoo gonna die, dude?
Dude,
I like how Yahoo wasn't in any of this conversation around Apple, Facebook, Google, YouTube, Twitter.
What about Yahoo,
Where's
dude?
Yahoo? What happened?
I think they're still in this weird mode where they're making enough money to kind of stay alive. It's like maybe even doing more than that. It's like I think abroad Yahoo still has relevance, right? I think so. It's like in the Philippines apparently, BlackBerry Messenger. Maybe it's Indonesia. I think it's Indonesia. BBM is like still the tool, even though people don't really use even Blackberries. The BBM software, BlackBerry Messenger software, is like the thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah, BlackBerry, dude, it's coming back.
It's coming back, dude.
You remember when they thought that the Apple TV was going to be a gaming device?
I know, right? Yeah. Speaking of games, you been playing anything recently?
Not really. I have been playing one thing, which is I've been using my PlayStation Vita, which is still the greatest console in the world. Haters gonna hate. To play Xenogears, which is a PlayStation 1 RPG. So let me break it down for you. I am using a PlayStation Vita, which is an unsupported console, which is emulating a PlayStation Portable, the previous unsupported console, to play a PlayStation 1 game from 1997. So anybody out there who thinks they're hipster, get at me.
Dude, that's pretty fucking hilarious.
And it's pretty great. It feels a little bit like, it's like one of those things where, I don't know if you have this experience with media, but like it's like one of those games that's compelling and good and all these things, but like it's a little clunky because it's old, but like, you kind of want to soldier through it because it's going to be worth it. Yeah. But like it takes a little bit of willpower to get through parts of it. You know what I'm saying? It's like just because it's older and like it's a little tedious. It's got the random battles and stuff that pop up, which are pretty tedious. Do you have like any experiences, any old games that like you go back and you're like, I really want to experience this, but
I'm trying to think. I don't know.
Maybe I just have this weird powerful nostalgia.
The only old games I go back to are the ones that are like just like fiercely competitive, right? I'll go back to Counter-Strike and all these types of games, either fiercely competitive or the grind. Like I've figured out over time that the games that appeal to me, even though like generally I'll play a story-based game like The Witcher, The Last of Us, like at the end of the day, what drives me is the grind and competition and like internal self-improvement in the game. So
when you say the grind, then it's like it is like the progression within a game like The Witcher.
Well, the thing is, like, it's the grind when there's a comparison of the grind to someone else. So, like, in The Witcher, it's single player, right? But in Diablo, I can
Right.
compare the efforts of my grind and how I calculated the grind to other folks based on the gear they have. And that to me kind of plays back on the competitive spirit, and I love it.
Yeah,
I
and
don't
that
know
makes
if that
sense.
makes sense, but yeah.
I mean, well, you got to pick up the mantle again and start playing StarCraft again, man.
It's too stressful, man. I can't do it. I can't do it. I've been playing this other game. Probably talk
There's
about
going to be
lot.
a time, dude, because the world is entering a weird, volatile phase. It's going to be like Monic, like the fate of the world hangs in your ability to play against in this Masters League.
If only, dude.
And you're going to have to like put on the headset and be like, all right.
Dude, I got.
And like you're going to toss this keto food out the window and be like, get me some chicken tikka masala. It's like, dude, I need some real fuel, some gamer fuel.
I need gamer fuel to play StarCraft.
Mountain Dew.
I've been playing Escape from Tarkov. Did I tell you about this game yet?
I think we talked about it a little bit. You're still playing it?
Oh, dude, I'm still so addicted. It's like the most realistic shooter that's out there.
Really? I didn't even realize it was a shooter. I thought it was like an RTS.
No. It's a shooter, and it's like, you know, some simple things that, you know, other folks who play games will recognize. Like, you know, in most shooters, you got a health bar, you got a HUD, you can see your bullets, you can see your magazines, you can see all this shit.
Yeah.
You can see your teammates, right? None of that. To see your teammate, you got to make sure you're matching the same armbands. To reload your magazine, you got to make sure it's in your pockets and it has bullets in it. If it doesn't have bullets in it, you got to reload and put bullets in it. And it just goes on and on and on in terms of its realistic mechanics. And it builds this environment where you are constantly on edge playing this game, but every kill you get is incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenally made game. It's
in that sense. Does it is it at all analogous to the feelings of these battle royale games like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds or Fortnite, where it's like the tension of like each phase you survive, each kill in the game like feels very meaningful compared to like say like a Halo type game because of like the
it definitely has
tension
aspects of that. But like, you know, one example is, let's say, so in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which is just like enormous at this point. If I am, reloading my weapon, I can just hit the R button and reload that weapon. Or if I'm shooting my weapon, I can know how many bullets are in my magazine, right? So I can look and see, okay, I shot 20 shots, I'm at 10 of 30.
Right.
With Tarkov, for example, let's say you're shooting your gun, there's no indicator to let you know how many bullets are left in your magazine. So there's a button you have to press to actually take out your magazine from your gun, look at it.
Wow.
And see how many bullets are left, and then put it back in your gun.
And you enjoy this level of masochism.
It's just realistic. It makes you. The thing is, what's powerful about it is it dramatically changes the tactics you employ in a first-person shooter in a way that I haven't seen before, right? So you have to think about your progression throughout the map, how you peek through corners, how you think about your positioning, how you think about sound in the game.
Right.
Because, you know, people are going to hear you reloading your bullets, for example. And
I have this thought, which is that it's only you and other InfoWars fans playing this game.
No, there's a lot of people. It's
because you're seeing it as like the most hardcore FPS, and they're seeing it as like a revolution simulator.
That'd be hilarious. That's the intermix, right?
So you go to it's like, yeah, I'll go to this Tarkov meetup, meet some cool people.
It's like, what the fuck? It's like, yeah, we're playing Tarkov. It's a milsim to like figure out 1776 will commence again if you take away our firearms.
And
that's my favorite Alex Jones meme.
Oh, is that it? It's not the frogs?
No. Turn to the freaking frogs, gay.
Yeah, it's like, which I think actually there was a kernel of real research in there. But it was layered in memes, and misinterpretation. Yeah, so we're going to try to do this more regularly.
Yeah, for sure. Well, ideally twice a month.
Yeah, I think we're going to aim it. Like if we put it out there into the world, that's like a contract we're forming with the universe, which is a pretty serious contract. Yeah,
we can't be untruthful to Mother Nature.
Yeah, we can't do that. So every week we'll try to basically, or every other week, already fudging the contract. We're going to try to talk through what's happening, a big issue, a couple issues. Again, like we did last time, maybe have a guest on when it makes sense to, and try to add to the discourse and try to reduce the discord, as it were.
Ooh,
you like that?
Hot damn, dude! Bars.
I know, dude. Kanye shouldn't have stopped at 7 albums. Should have made an 8th one with me on it. But
I know, dude. Jeez.
The number 7 though is a powerful number. So I see why he stuck with 777. It's one more than it's two more than 555 Herman Cain's.
His deal. Man, he's made his cheese.
He's made his cheese. I don't know what he's doing nowadays, but I have to assume he's living well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, speaking of that, I don't know why this came to mind now, but we got to watch the D'Souza movie that came out.
I can't do. Have you watched any of Dinesh D'Souza's movies?
No, I haven't, but this one seemed particularly bad.
I feel like we'll cross a line, even though we're quite adventurous and quite, we realize we have to go to the gates of the things that are uncomfortable, observe them, interact with them, interrogate them, contend with them. I feel like Dinesh D'Souza's stuff is a bridge too far, man. I don't know. I feel like it's so, and the fact that dude got pardoned. Oh fuck, god damn it!
I know. Dude,
I forgot that happened. I forgot that happened.
Damn, dude.
And that dude, man. And I can't blame him for it because I'd probably do the same thing. He was so smug on Twitter afterwards. He's like, "Well, I got a pardon, so I'm not going to jail." Because everyone's like, "You're going to jail, lol." And he's next day he's like, "Actually, I'm not."
Did you see his proposal to his new bae?
I did not. Oh, it's on YouTube?
It's on YouTube, dude. He put his proposal on YouTube. He proposes at like a dinner and like he gives the ring and the cake. It's like, come on, Dinesh, man.
Yeah, I mean that's I don't know. Was it a good looking cake?
It was all right. Yeah, it was all right. But you got to put more effort into it.
Let the man live. Let the man live. As long as he doesn't make hateful content.
And especially just as long as he doesn't besmirch the name of Obama, dude. Fuck.
At some point, maybe I'll go and watch some of what he's done, but I'll have to be under the influence of something when I'm doing it.
That's what we should do next time, dude. Next time we're in New York, we're gonna get drunk, watch Dinesh D'Souza Uncast.
Yeah, we can actually. We could probably just like have like a Twitch stream going.
Yeah.
Just be like, dude, that's an idea, right? It's like let's watch politically whacked out videos and like
live
Twitch stream the live reaction of the people watching them.
Not a bad idea.
All right, well, let's cut the tape here, dude. We can't have people stealing this idea.
Dude, that idea is too good, dude. All right, cut the tape. Cut the tape.
We have this forum for long-form discussion. Real long-form discussion. Turns out that everyone is way smarter than we thought. It's the wave. It's the wave. It's the wave. That's a real mistake. You might be on top of the wave. It's the wave. It's the wave. It's the wave. You might be on top of the wave, but you're not. It's the wave. The people at the forefront of this are being cascaded forward like a surfer on a giant wave on this technological transformation. It's necessary to keep your ego under control. With regards to the people coming to see me, the proper attitude towards that, and I think this is true for any performer, is gratitude. You bloody well be happy those people are there. And you should never think there's something spectacularly special about yourself that's attracting these people and that somehow you're above them and they're your fans, or there's this real power differential, even though that sort of manifests itself because people are so happy to see you. That's a dangerous pathway, and I truly am ridiculously overwhelmed and grateful and happy and pleased that all these people show up.